Hi everybody, Mr. Bruce here. Today's book is Alligator Baby. Before we start, eyes watching, ears listening, voices quiet, body calm. This is about a little girl named Kristen. It all starts one night when she's in bed and she hears her mom scream, a baby, wake up, I'm having a baby. Her mom was having a baby. Well, that's better. Kristen's father jumped up, zoomed around the room, got dressed, and grabbed Kristen's mother by the hand. They ran downstairs to the car and drove off really fast. Vroom. Unfortunately, on the way to the hospital, they got lost, and instead of going to the hospital, they went to the zoo. But it was okay. Kristen's mother had a lovely baby, and they drove home and knocked on the front door for Kristen to let him in, because she'd been watching the house. Kristen opened up the door, and there was her mother holding something all wrapped up in a blanket. Kristen, would you like to see your baby brother? Oh, yes, said Kristen. So Kristen lifted up the bottom of the blanket, and she saw a long green tail slide out. She said, that's not a people tail. And then she lifted up the middle of the blanket, and she saw a green claw. That's not a people claw. And then she opened up the top of the blanket, and she saw a big row of teeth. That's not a baby face. That's not my baby brother. And her mother says, now, Kristen, don't be jealous of your new brother. Just then, the baby reached up and bit Mother on the nose. Ah! Then the baby reached up and bit Dad on the nose. Ah! That's not a people baby, said Kristen. That's an alligator baby. Goodness, Mother said, we've brought home the wrong baby. So Kristen and the alligator baby went over to the fish tank, and her mother and her father drove back to the zoo. They came back in an hour and knocked on the door. Kristen opened up, and her mother said, would you like to see your baby brother? Oh, yes, said Kristen. Kristen lifted up the bottom of the blanket and saw a fishy tail. That's not a people tail. Then she lifted up the middle of the blanket and saw a flipper and said, that's not a baby flipper. Then she lifted up the top of the blanket and saw a face with whiskers and said, that's not a baby. That's not my baby brother. And once again, her mother said, now, Kristen, don't be jealous of your baby brother. Just then, the baby reached up with a flipper and flapped her father's face. Whap! Then he yelled, oh, it's a seal baby. We got the wrong baby. So Kristen put the baby in a bathtub and watched the house, and her mother and father drove back to the zoo. In an hour, they came back and knocked on the door. Blam, blam, blam. Kristen, would you like to see your new baby brother? Oh, yes, said Kristen. She lifted up the bottom of the blanket and saw a very hairy leg and said, that's not a people leg. Then she lifted up the middle of the blanket and saw a very hairy arm and said, that's not a people arm. Then she lifted up the top of the blanket, saw a very hairy face and said, that's not a people face. That's not my baby brother. Now, Kristen, her mother said again, don't be jealous of your baby brother. Just then, the baby reached up with its feet and grabbed her mother's ear and father's ear, and they both yelled, ah, no, it's a gorilla baby. We brought home the wrong baby. Let me do it this time, said Kristen. So her mother and her father put the baby gorilla on the chandelier in the living room, and Kristen went off on her zoo to the bicycle as fast as she could pedal. First, Kristen looked in the snake cage. Nope, no babies. Then Kristen looked in the wombat cage. Nope, no people babies. Then she looked in the elephant cage. Nope, no people babies. Then she just stopped and listened. And far, far away she heard, wah, wah, wah. Ah, Kristen said, that's more like it. She followed the sound which was coming from the gorilla cage. Kristen looked at the mommy gorilla and said, give me my baby brother. The gorilla mother jumped back and away and wouldn't give the baby back at all because she thought what was in her arms was her baby. Then Kristen's little brother, the baby, reached up and bit the gorilla on the nose. Ah, said the gorilla, you're not a baby gorilla. And she gave the gorilla back to Kristen, who jumped on her bicycle and pedaled home as fast as she could. When she got there, she knocked on the door and her parents opened it and said, "Would you like to see your new parents?" Oh, and her mother and dad said, "Yes, yes." "Look, people's legs," she said when she opened up the bottom of the blanket. And then her mother opened up the middle of the blanket and said, "Look, people's hands." And on top of that, she looked at the face and said, "Look, it's a people face. It's a baby face. It's your little brother." Kristen's mother picked up the baby and gave it a big hug. Her father took the baby and gave it a big hug. And her mother said, "Kristen, Kristen, thank goodness you got our baby back." "But what are we going to do with all these other babies?" yelled Kristen's father. "There's a seal baby in the bathtub, an alligator baby in the fish tank, a gorilla baby hanging from the chandelier. We should take them back to the zoo." But Kristen looked out the window and said, "I don't think we're going to have to do anything at all because the parents are all here and they want their babies back." And everything was okay until Kristen's mother had another baby. But that's another story. The end. Well, lucky Kristen found her own real baby brother. If you could have a baby to come home from the zoo, a baby animal of any kind, what would the baby pet you'd like most? A baby cat or a baby elephant or a baby giraffe maybe? Maybe a baby horse? There could be a baby anything. Everybody would get their own pick. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow. But until that time, you get to your folks and wash your hands. Bye-bye.